Griff, what's the mood in the squad like after the draw on the weekend?
I think Tag summed it up. There's a positive mood. The players were happy with the way they started the game, and we created a lot of good quality chances. We scored two very good goals. We want to continue to build on that type of mentality. Obviously, managing the game better is something that we need to address. But the intent of how we want to play for the remainder of the season has been clear the last two games.
The Melbourne City Central Coast result last night obviously meant that you guys are 8 points off the pace of finals. How are you feeling? Do you feel like within the group there is a sense that it's the one that got away?
The group would be disappointed naturally, as am I. But the reality of it is that we need to continue to build and grow. I think we've been quite competitive throughout the season. With our strongest availability, we've been more than that. We've been a team to beat. We've sort of overcome some adversity in terms of losing key players, but we're starting to push towards how we want to continue to play for the rest of this season. So from my perspective, the mentality of the group is strong. They want to finish the season strong, and we want to put a really strong performance in front of our home fans that they can be proud of.
How do you evolve that over the final 3 weeks of a season? What can you take from what's been put on tape and use that to ensure that you guys finish the season strong?
Yeah, we look at all the positives that we have had in especially the last two games, because I see a complete shift in terms of our mentality, a little bit more freedom with our actions. That we take those positives, we reassess those moments, and we continue to touch on some of the areas that we can improve, some defensive actions that we need to improve, because normally my teams are built on strong defensive foundations. That hasn't been the case this year, and we need to improve in that area.
You said when you took the job you'd be disappointed if you didn't reach the finals. Why do you feel like, upon reflection, the team has left itself with a lot of work to do?
I feel that key players not being available at specific times, and that we talked about inconsistencies, and sometimes that is inconsistency in terms of whether it be the attacking line not be completely available altogether at one time. I don't think we've had that. I think 4 or 5 games, and those have been the games that we've really performed strongly. So from my perspective, it's about continually build on key young players to help improve them, so then they're better for those moments to then grow into the next season. But the mentality of the group, as I said, is fully focused on performing strongly in these next few games.
How do you approach the final 3 games of the season, knowing that your contract is expiring? Obviously there'll be talks between yourself and the club at some point in regards to your future, but how do you not just prepare the team, but also, I guess, from a personal perspective, deal with that pressure?
You just have to deal with it. Fully focused on making sure that we prepare the best we possibly can. If I start focusing on what ifs and the future, then I lose focus on this game, which is the Macarthur game. They're a strong team. They've had 2 big performances. My full focus on preparing the team is to make sure that they are ready for that, so that we can entertain our fans.
The win over Macarthur away 2-0 was probably one of the better performances Glory have put on the park this season, and there were parts of the 2-2 draw away to Macarthur where you guys played really well. What are the right lessons you feel like you need to take from those performances so that you can replicate them against the Bulls on Sunday?
I think the Bulls have started to evolve a little bit more as well. So we can't go too deep into previous games, because they have changed. They've played a back 5 the last 2 games, and they've been quite effective with that, with two big wins. So we look at the weaknesses within their game, but also continue to focus on some of our positives to grow that.
In terms of managing the game, what do you see as the role of tempo in that, in terms of you guys like to play quickly in transition when you can, but do you run the risk of getting too quick? And then also in terms of when you need to slow the play down, how do you ensure that the team doesn't go too slow and get accustomed to that slower speed?
Yeah, it's obviously the tempo and the moments in games are important. Understand what the scoreline is, understand whether you've just been under the pump or whether you've had complete domination. Those are the key moments for us that we need to get better at, is identifying when to slow the game down, when to speed it up. Key players can dictate that because they're on the pitch. That's probably the key for us, to identify these moments and how do we speed up when we need to go faster, and how do we just stay composed and take a little bit of speed out of the game.
How do you teach that, particularly when you've got a couple of young midfielders, Will and Gio, who are both very good on the ball and have both had good seasons, but I guess that part of the game is something you almost acquire with experience, right?
Yeah, so I always say with young players, the more games they play, the more experience they get, and they find themselves in those situations. What I'll do with those young ones is just take them aside. We'll do some video sessions on those key moments. I know when those key moments were, and we improve together as a collective. So it's not just those young ones, it's also some senior boys that should know that we need to speed up and when we need to relax, and that's not happening at the moment, to manage the game better.
Just on the injury front, Adam, any injuries coming out of the game last weekend, and any players coming back?
There's a couple of players that are sort of like 50-50. Will Freeney's 50-50, came off with a quad, but it seems that that's not a significant injury, so he should be back training on Friday. And there's a couple of other ones with some small niggles, but they should be all back training Friday. So I'll know more Friday what type of squad we'll have. No one returning from any injuries.